Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's
Hey,
great. This is Dylan from Web3, or excuse me, from NFT3. I was about to say Web3, which would be also accurate, in fact, because we are building in the context of Web3. And beside me are Shashwat Eternal. He's our CMO at NFT3, and one of our major supporters, Ryan Fang, who I'm sure needs very little introduction as COO and founder of Anchor, among other things. And gents, if you
yeah.
want to just introduce yourselves a little bit, it's cool by me. And I'll stop talking because I think I'm a little overexposed on this conference at this point.
Yeah, I think you saying you work for Web3 is actually highly relevant as you just got done talking to Gavin Foot and Edward Snowden, and you said Web3 a lot there. So makes a lot of sense. Hi everyone, I'm Shashwat. I basically handle marketing at NFT3, and very excited to be here. Really excited to see Edward Snowden and Gavin Wood talking to my CEO. It was amazing, really. I had chills the whole time, and I was kind of speaking to the screen, even though I was not on the call. It was really funny. If you had seen me, it would have been hilarious. Um, well, I think like so that's my intro. Don't really want to get into too much of that, to be honest. One thing I would, like I said, I was very involved in that conversation, and one thing I would really bring up is a point that Edward had brought up, about the possible future corruption of this movement we have going on with Web3 right now, and how that ties into identity.
Mm.
I think one bit that got somewhat missed in that conversation is that every time technological progress happens, or let us say that a new experiment takes place, the stakes seem to get higher. So the promises that Web2 held were amazing, and they were, they had never been seen before. And we've seen the kind of corporations that it led to when it went left, so to speak. I think with Web3, there's a similar, even further utopian possibility, but also a worse doomsday scenario, And so I think the point I would bring in with NFT3 is there's two questions. What if you could own your identity in the metaverse? What if you were actually, for the first time, able to monetize it, control it, direct what somebody or some entity could or could not do with it? And that sounds like an amazing possibility. There's a ton of use cases that I'm sure Dylan can bring up. But on the flip side of it, because we've had Snowden here today, some of the scarier elements are what if we don't have that? And what if Facebook is actually able to execute on their walled garden of what they're calling the metaverse, but is really not for any Web3 person a metaverse at all? Then we're looking at a very bleak scenario where we're not even just handing out, well, most of our sensitive information, but really slices of our life now. Because if that is the kind of metaverse that we're living in, then you would be entirely doing activities within a digital framework. And it's a gated community that you can be kicked out of at any time, and that you have no slice of ownership in anyway. So it's a very scary proposition, and it does, I think, center around the metaverse in general, but also identity as well as NFTs, which is where we come in, and we hope to do quite some good in the world. I also think Edward's message was very sobering. It was a little scary. This is a difficult problem to solve,
Hmm.
identity. But I'm confident that not only are our intentions in the right place, but we're very well advised and backed. Of course, Dylan himself, uh, couldn't look for a better leader, to be very honest. But yeah, so that's kind of my
Thanks.
first bit. I think I've overspoken anyway. I'll leave it to Ryan.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, I'm sure people want to know, why you're supporting NFT3, what made you get involved, and then maybe after that, I can explain what it is because people may not even know what we're talking about.
yeah, and
But I would love to hear you.
even I'm going to, I guess, say a bit of my understanding of NFT3 and my understanding of at least the vision NFT3 is trying to build. Right now, if we look at the entire crypto space, the entire crypto DeFi world or metaverse world, it is largely anonymous, right? It's largely without any record, which will lead to future either virtuous or vicious result, right? In another world, In another word, this is a world right now. Whatever you do not have positive or negative consequences, right? Now, from the traditional world before Web3 that we are all in, we understand that, with a credit system, you can borrow some money, with some good records, you can do things, and with some bad records, you will have some difficulties to do things, right? Now, right now, the crypto space, for better or worse, is, almost like a pure libertarian type of like feeling world where it's kind of like everybody is on their own. They do whatever they want, which is great. And myself and I believe many people in the crypto space is all for the freedom, liberty, and everything that we in the space all cherish. However, we do have to realize and understand that a great identity system will actually have a lot of virtuous, cycle, right? Right now, whenever I borrow money, or lend money, on the DeFi, it's all collateralized based, right? I have to like, let's say I do it on Compound, or I do it on Aave or whatever, right? I always have to put up, a large amount of collateral, which in reality, in the real world, if you may, right, there are a number of ways you can do it. You either have someone else to guarantee it, or you just have a great track record that shows you're going to do it, right? And default, as a matter of fact, is also a part of lending and borrowing. Is a part of risk, right? So I think without identity, without on-chain identity, all of this is going to become very difficult and impossible to realize, right? And I think NFT3 and the team has just got ahead of their time vision and and an execution plan to really utilize NFT, which again is such an interesting sort of medium to use, because at the end of the day you can transfer your NFT, right? Which is kind of like an unthinkable in the real world, where basically you're kind of transferring your identity from one to another, right? If today, Ryan thought, his life been doing not all that great, and Dylan can probably just, no, I think that's a very interesting, concept and discussion starting point, right? But regardless, NFT3 and the team has got the vision and the infrastructure and the roadmap really opened up such a huge, sort of basket, of possibilities, right? It's all about, I believe, like crypto in general, Web3. My own company, anchored this Web3 infrastructure, right? All we're trying to do is create tools and ways and products that enable even more possibility that is going to be done and actually conduct and execute by other people, the users, right? We always believe that the biggest and most successful platforms in the world are platforms that's got a ton of user-generated, content. People can actually interact on platform. For example, the virtual meeting, platform we're using, right? And whoever created this, like the, Microsoft team, they don't know what is going to really going on, in their product. As a matter of fact, actually, one of the product lead Microsoft team now work for me, but it's a
little gentle flex there.
right? Like he basically told me they never thought it'd be actually such a wide use across like different industries. They don't even know would ever use their product, right? And I think it'd be a huge success if one day someone is using NFT3 and the island would say, well, I've never thought people can use it this way, right? That's all about, that's what this is all about, right? Creating products and services that enables other people, that creates possibilities.
Yeah, totally.
I think I'll
totally
step
agree.
in. I'll just
Go
step
ahead,
in and
please.
bridge and then let Dylan come in. Yeah, I think the point that Ryan brought up was more like the DeFi application of something that we're doing here, and it's absolutely true, because what we're seeing right now with loans in DeFi is that they're very, very rudimentary. And so the puzzle of identity, so to speak, is how do we hold on to privacy and control, hopefully add monetization capabilities in a way that is very equitable and actually, the value accrued goes largely to the person creating the data, right? The person that owns the NFT, so to speak, in our framework. But at the same time, it's absolutely necessary for us to create more complexity in the DeFi space, which is, the only way it can scale. So it's like a proper problem in DeFi right now that there's no credit score, for example, queuing that up, I'll let Dylan step in and introduce NFT3, introduce himself a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I work between NFT3. I primarily work in NFT3 now, but I did found Kylan as well and remain strategically oriented in that project. But I think, okay, so identity is like, from my perspective, NFT3 is trying to solve, or it's operating from the standpoint of a couple like fundamental basic theses, or maybe even a single fundamental basic thesis, which is that for web3 to work in the way that we think it's going to work, you have to have some sort of decentralized identity layer that is mutable, flexible, interoperable, has the feature of being able to allow people to be creative with it, and is something that is a conveyance for high velocity and high adoption of users onto it. Because an identity layer without people accruing identity is pretty useless. So when we formed this working group around this, what ended up being a really naive idea, by the way, which is but it nevertheless an idea that was maybe intuitive. I just had this sort of like, I'll call it my snowflake thesis of, humans are really unique and NFTs are really unique, and just conceptually kind of goes together in my head. Now, it turns out that that was not the greatest idea, but we ended up iterating and refining on that to include what is really truly the meat and potatoes of the tech stack of NFT3, which is DIDs, or decentralized identifiers. Now, decentralized identifiers are an amazing new sort of standard that was recently approved by the same group that approves things like HTTPS. In fact, the last major standard they approved was HTTPS. So it gives you an idea of how important this standard is. And what we do is we use the DID standard, or we'll create a DID method called an iteration of it, of DID NFT. So we're wrapping an NFT in a decentralized identifier. And then to activate that decentralized identifier so it can travel through like breadcrumbs across a Web3 or a Web2 journey, because by the way, DIDs are able to travel, between these contexts with very little issue. Then all of a sudden we have this basis of infrastructure for a layer, an identity layer that can actually be adoptable and have some really, really interesting, neat use cases. Yes, which include things like under collateralized loan arrangements, which it's like, hey, what's the point of getting a loan if you can already afford it? That's the state of the art right now in crypto. And under collateralized loans are under discovery right now. And yes, you could potentially conceive of NFT3 and our end credit system as a catalyst for this. And anyway, I think that this is just an incredible area for us to discover. We will be moving forward on it over the next couple months. We'll have our public sale. And I'm extremely excited for it. Decentralized identity, I think, sits as a major area along with, I think it sits in the nexus of DData. And, I really see an evolution or arc of the technology and, technology revolutions going from metaverse to, DData and decentralized identity. Like, these are the next frontiers. And we're extremely excited to be on the forefront of it. It looks like our time is wrapping up, though. So I wish I could talk more, but that's really all I have to say. And I welcome everyone to join our Telegram group, get involved. I think we've got some really cool stuff brewing.